Now time for us to move ahead to our next topic. Whilst it is on the day one of GFF 2025, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about our next topic, global, instant, trusted. What's the next billion users will expect from finance? And on that front, allow me an opportunity to invite our eminent speakers on stage. With our moderator, let's invite Mr. Ankit Ratan, co-founder, Signzy. Let's give him a big, big round of applause as we have him join us on stage. Thank you, Ankit. May I now invite on stage Mr. Akhil Devmurari, Fintech Sector Head, JP Morgan's Payments. I'd now like to invite on stage Mr. Fredrik Kjell, COO of Truecaller. May I now humbly invite on stage Joachim Samuelsson, CEO, Crunchfish Digital Cash. And if I could now invite Sonia Dasgupta, MD and CEO, Investment Banking, JM Financial. As we have all of them on stage, may I pass on the live baton to Ankit to take it forward.
Hey, hi everyone. It's a post-lunch session, so we understand we'll have to make it spicy, and as some of the guests said, make it naughty in the pre-discussion. So we'll try and make it more lively. Just to do fairness to the panelists we have, it's a truly global panel, and we'll probably start with a small intro where at least you understand where they come from, who they are. And then I think we'll jump into what this panel is about. So, Akhil, if we can start from you, we can have a very small intro, what you do and what your organization does. Of course, everyone knows it, but still do a quick intro, and then we'll jump into the questions.
Thank you, and thanks everyone. Great to see you all. So Akhil Devmurari, I run the fintech sector for Asia Pac at JP Morgan Payments. The focus and what we do, working with the pay tech companies in terms of partnerships, in terms of how we work with providing the rails and availing that, basically taking the digital payments landscape to the next level. So I'll try and keep it brief.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, Fredrik.
Hi everyone, Fredrik Kjell is my name. I work at Truecaller as the Chief Operating Officer. I've been doing that for about 5 years. Most of you probably don't know what Truecaller is. What I think it's important to know is that Truecaller is on the verge, I think, of becoming a really powerful, big and global player of trust. And it's not only about spam and identification, but rather verification and authenticity. So looking forward to the panel.
Hey everybody, my name is Joachim Samuelsson. I am the CEO of Crunchfish. We are a deep fintech company enabling what is called offline payments. We've been very active here in India many years, and very happy to keep supporting India's revolution within payments, I would say.
Hi everyone, my name is Sonia Dasgupta. I'm the CEO of JM Financial Investment Banking. I've spent almost more than 2 decades here. JM is a 5-decade-old investment bank. We have partnered with a lot of fintechs, a lot of exchanges, and work very closely with the regulators on defining and ensuring that the next generation can trade on the markets faster, and are working very closely with a lot of fintechs early on their funding, right up to their IPOs.
Awesome. I think, especially on Truecaller, most of us think of it as an Indian company, I'm sure. So I'm sure everyone was fully aware. So I think let's jump directly into, maybe at least for me personally, what always has been the biggest question, that local payments, whatever country you go to, are so simple. But any cross-border payment flow, even though today I think the volume is huge, it's almost $10 trillion. The moment you think about cross-border, even if it's a small payment to a consultant, you think of paperwork, you think of pain. So Akhil, maybe given your background, how do you see this evolving, and is there a much brighter future in 5 years?
Sure, I think it's an interesting one, right? So if we, just before we start, I think I just wanted to set a bit of a context. The theme in the recent past was all around faster, cheaper, and fully integrated payments. I mean, that was a tagline for the past few years. But that's not good enough. If you talk about the next frontier, it's going to be smart. How can the payments be more smart, innovative, personalized? How can it be more secured to bring the trust and confidence, and scalable? Be able to reach anywhere in the world, to what you just asked, and interoperable. I think that's going to be the key in terms of how you can deliver this. And for us to achieve that, there's multiple things that need to happen. And there is various parties, not just banks or fintech companies or regulators. I think it's a partnership. So there are three components I feel are super critical. So it's going to be the collaboration between, as I just talked about, right? So banks, the financial institutions, fintechs, regulators, networks, clearinghouses, all of them coming together. I think that's going to be super critical. The other important part is around the open banking and integration, because that helps with data transfer and availing the data in a secured manner. So actually that trust element can be lifted. And if you talk about the third component is the emerging payment rails, right? We always talk about UPI and how successful it has been. Now, as UPI now starts to integrate with the other payment rails, with in Singapore, there's a fast UPI integration. So I think similar to that, I think that's going to be critical. And the infrastructure modernization, I think that's going to be super critical. Bringing all together and where and what we are looking at as a bank and what role we play working with the fintech companies, I think this is a great example in terms of a collaboration. We as a bank, I call it an engine room, process some 5,000 transactions per second, 24/7 in some 10 trillion plus value on a daily basis. That talks about resiliency. So the banks bring in the infrastructure, the stacks that they've built over the years, and fintech companies bring in the agility and the customer experience via the digital technology that they bring in. I think that convergence is super powerful. What fintechs have been able to achieve is support the underserved, and I'll try and cover a bit of a cross-border angle to this. I mean, if there's a huge population underserved here, of course, but if you look at the other markets, Southeast Asia, there's about 50% population which is unbanked, and that's where the opportunity lies for the fintech companies to tap the market. So if you talk about the financial inclusion in there as well, I think it's a powerful convergence that delivers and supports that story. But everything has to be in the S3S that I talked about, right? So, but it has to be secured, it has to be scalable, because if you don't deliver this, the future is not that great. But I think we're heading on the right track, but I think that it requires more focus and a push.
I think awesome, and especially on Singapore, it hit home. I was in Singapore last week, although couldn't make a payment using UPI. So, maybe not the best thing to say in an NPCI event, but yeah, I think things will improve. But I think one thing that you said around unbanked, I think that's a very critical question. We talk about global payments as if all of us have this great NPCI-like infra. All countries have this great NPCI-like infra, and everyone has a smartphone. But what about the emerging economies? What about people without smartphones? So, Joachim, maybe that question goes to you, that when we talk about global financial inclusion, many times we just talk about the upper half of global. What about the lower half of global, and do you see a possibility of that converging anytime soon?
Yes, I do. offline payments on a global scale, it's there now. Anyone who has a smart card, and I think most of us have in our pockets, you can't be more offline than with a physical smart card. It can only connect via that little chip to a card terminal, but you're certainly offline. And when you have your credentials on that NFC chip, that smart chip on your card, yeah, you can pay offline. That's possible. There is a credit risk there, but you can pay offline. But it's important to take this now to the next level. It doesn't have to be linked to only the card networks. It can be on any rail. It could be on an instant payment rail like UPI, and it can be on CBDC, and there is, in Africa, there's a lot of mobile operators. All these rails can also do offline payments. It shouldn't just be P2M, like we see today with card payments. You have to pay to a card terminal. It should be P2P as well. And you need to go further than just thinking it should just be NFC, because if we look at here in India, I think only maybe 1 out of 5 phones have NFC. So you can't build a system which is just fundamentally just built on NFC as the basic. So there is a lot of improvements that needs to be done in order to enable, say, the next billion. I think the next billion should expect offline to be possible, but we need to move beyond just to have it on the card rail with the smart cards. And yes, we do provide that stack to make that all possible.
And I think just a follow-up question there, and especially for the audience, I think would want to go deeper into what you're talking about. That for us, offline and online is simply about cash is offline and everything else is online. So if you can even go deeper and explain how offline can also have that great instant-like experience that you have online, and what are the security risks, what are the benefits of the technology that you're building. I think that would be great for the audience to understand.
Well, just like you can be counterfeiting physical cash, you could do things on even possibly easier on a digital scale. It's called double spending, that you would top up a phone, you make a copy of sort of your state of your phone, and you make payments, copy that back again, and all of a sudden the money is back. So you need to protect for what is called double spending. So what's needed is a more secure wallet than what is currently available for online payments. But if you have that, you can reserve part of your funding into something you have locally, and you can transact over a separate security protocol. We call it a layer 2 security protocol that can be verified at the recipient side and later also in the back end, and then it settles. So we believe in a paradigm where you reserve money, just like you go to an ATM, you take out money to yourself, you pay offline, and then any party, either yourself or whoever you pay to, could then settle this later on the whatever underlying payment rail, which could be CBDC, it could be on an instant payment rail, or it could be a mobile operated rail, whatever rail. But it's essentially reserve, pay, and settle is the paradigm that we believe in.
And I think, interestingly, I think you picked up a point which I think is very interesting, is that we started with a discussion about banking. So we presume trust, because we presume all the actors within banking have had strong KYC, and the time they have access, they're already trusted. But I think in instant, is there a way to bring trust? Like one good example is B2C companies or Truecaller, where a lot of trust exists without so much processes. So maybe my question to Fredrik will be that, is there some collaboration possible here where something can be learned about bringing the next layer into financial services without having such an extensive KYC process? Is there some form of instant trust creation also?
Well, I think we're talking about payments now and the kind of like transaction as the end goal. I think for a lot of people that use payments and want to pay, it doesn't start with a transaction. It actually ends with a transaction. And obviously, there's a big payments focus here these couple of days. But, it actually starts with a handshake, I think. That when you want to do business with someone, you do business with someone that you trust. So it starts way before the actual payment takes place. And obviously, you know, I'm here representing Truecaller. We support companies, we support a lot of different actors to verify their identity when they make outbound connections to their, you know, potential customers or existing customers. But what I do think will be important when it comes to trust is some type of verification that happens on both party levels. So let's say, for instance, I come from Sweden. We have something called Bank ID, which is a digital ID. We use it for pretty much everything. Log into the tax authority, there's a digital bank ID. When I want to make a payment, it's a digital bank ID, etc. What we don't have today, which I think will be important, is, you know, that the other party in that transaction, they also need to verify to me. Why people like Truecaller is because it's a double implicit verification. And we haven't really reached that state to verify both parties in a transaction. How do I know that I'm making a transaction with someone that is verified by someone? You know, it's very difficult. It's always easy to make a payment, but you know, you don't know where it goes sometimes. So I think in order to level up on the trust aspect, we need to think about what happens before the transaction.
And I think all of us have benefited from Truecaller. At least I can say as a customer that, you know, what you're talking about is something which has been a lived experience for, I think, most of us in the audience. Can you even go a little bit deeper and talk about where did this problem definition start? Because I think for a lot of financial services, we are sort of following guidelines, right? We are following guidelines from the regulator. But Truecaller had no guideline, right? You guys looked at the problem as it existed in the world, and you felt there's a lack of trust. So if you can talk about a little bit about that history, that, you know, how did you discover that problem, and you know, how did you come up with this, and where do you think this can go in the future?
So basically, Truecaller started because the two founders, they were starting to get calls from outside the country. They didn't know who was calling, and they said to themselves, there must be a smarter way of identifying who's trying to reach me. Someone probably knows who's behind this number. So they started this project, you could say, and released it in a beta format, and it picked up massively, and it gained a lot of attention. And then they could start to crowdsource this information from users contributing with data points. And fast forwarding, you know, it has moved from, I would say, more of a casual caller ID into a kind of like spam blocking app, and now it's more towards a trust and security application. So today, Truecaller has about 9 billion calls per day going through the system. Every single call carries a lot of important signals. So we're gathering hundreds of billions of signals on a daily basis, and our models can pretty instantly determine what type of call this is. On top of that, and this is where the beauty comes in, the users contribute 500 million feedback points every single day as well. And they say, this was a fraud, this was a spam. They share a comment, a name suggestion, something like that. And we can do this, you know, 24/7 around the world. So I think that was pretty much how it started, and let's see how it will continue.
And so is it fair to say that unlike a regulated forced trust mechanism, you have some sort of a democratized shared trust mechanism? Is that a fair way to put it? And
Absolutely.
And maybe going back to, and maybe everyone can have a take on this also, like, is there a learning for fintechs here that for the unbanked, or as we are trying to expand different services, is there a similar experience that can fintech and banks can go through outside what can be considered as conventional banking on trust? For Joachim, maybe.
Can you repeat that question?
So my question is that, or let's go to, let's say, more historical context of the question, that we do see a lot of frauds, right? Even today in India, there are a lot of digital frauds. Every day we read about digital frauds, and I think the regulator, the government, everyone is trying to figure out ways to solve it. And looking at the experience that Truecaller had, where it was not some authority, it was not some very large team or some large data collection, but it was a democratized way of creating a trust network. Are there learnings and lessons for financial services here?
I think so. I think we, for my company, we enable payments without any back-end support at all. That itself requires trust, because you are not really trusting the person who's standing next to you, so you need to trust the system that person is using. That's the only way to do it. And that needs an infrastructure of trust that needs to be established before you do the transaction. A little bit like Fredrik said, it doesn't start with a transaction before there has to be some trust infrastructure in place. So that you enable, but it's not that you trust a certain person, you trust the system that the person is using. And that is what we are relying on. And that can be used for offline payments, but also to strengthen online payments. Because if you have more trust, so much trust you can trust it offline, that provides another layer of trust also for online payments as well, that this infrastructure that we provide enables.
No, I think makes a lot of sense. And Akhil, if you also want to have a take on this.
Sure. I think this is a very interesting area, right? So again, the topic is global instant. So cross-border payments, the expectation is that they settle instantly. Now, the fraudsters are getting smarter and smarter. So you will see a lot of instances where money lands in the account, fraudsters somehow managed to get into the financial ecosystem, created a wallet account or a bank account. As soon as money lands, it's good as gone, right? So how do you save it? That's where I think the opportunity comes up for us as banks or the financial institutions to work with the fintech companies around building an ecosystem. And this is something we've built with working with, so leveraging the blockchain technology and working with various financial institutions, fintechs and other financial institutions around the account validation. I was looking at some numbers, somewhere around $100 billion were being lost as of 24 fraud accounts, and the volumes were being lost because money's landing in the wrong account and money's gone after. So how do we protect the customers? How do we protect the sender before it lands in the account? There's a validation that takes place that this account belongs to Ankit and not someone else. I think that's one step in the right direction, but there are so many other possibilities and scenarios I think we as an ecosystem players can try to tackle. I think that's where the opportunity is.
No, I think extremely good point. And like if we take the Truecaller example, where it was the international calls that sort of needed some sort of democratic network, I think same makes for global payment. And I think moving to Sonia, also about global investments, because I think, of course, we've been talking about payments very frequently, but as a global customer, you want to not only pay people online, you want to buy into foreign companies, you would want other companies to invest in India, but that experience is still, if payments is broken, maybe that is still decades old or is very, very hard. So how can that be made instant? How can that become UPI-like experience? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, I think when it comes to investments, I will have to say that India has one of the best settlement and clearing systems globally. We don't have T+1 and T+2 settlements on equities anywhere in the world. So I think when it comes to safety and security of settlements on the exchanges, fortunately, India has been way ahead. Just as we looped a lot of things on telecom, where we hardly used the pages and we still straight away went to technology. I think some key reasons which have enabled us when you are a late starter is you jumpstart and reach the final this very fast. So I think one of the key tailwinds has been the whole phenomenon of dematerialization, where we dematerialized all our equities very early on. That enabled instant settlements. That is one of the biggest backbones. Then, of course, the whole fillip that came through digitization, which is the quote-unquote affordable digital internet with low pricing on data. Added to that was the whole tailwind of having very young demographics. Therefore, the youth are very quick to adapt to new technologies. And that enabled a lot of people to understand very quickly and to set up platforms where people could sit at home and do a lot of trading, have instant updates on their handsets on where the trading securities and the money is gone. And I think a lot of credit to the entire regulatory framework, whether it is SEBI, the exchanges, the depositories, the share transfer, everyone rose to the occasion. And it was during COVID that we actually had one of the largest rights issues when nobody moved out of their houses. It was a 54,000 crore rights issue of Reliance, where even the rights renunciation payment, everything was done digitally. So I think, coming from an age where there was a lot of paperwork done for everything, now you don't have to do anything on the paper, and trading, settlement, everything is done digitally. So I think that is a great fillip for something to happen instantly and without any delay, and to have accuracy because there is very little manual intervention. It's all automated. Of course, that adds to the importance of having very strong infrastructure layers of security as well as safety on the digital infrastructure.
And I think, at least I can speak for myself, that we have never seen the hard part. Because as investors, we have only seen the good times, unlike payments where we saw cash. So maybe if you can also take example from some country which is still not as digitized as India is, and try and compare in, that will give the audience a better flavor of that we are ahead compared to some other developed country.
No, I think in many countries, I think beside, even in the US actually, we don't have T+1 and T+2 settlements on the equities. I wouldn't be able to give specific examples of other countries where this is, but I can tell you an example where in India itself, when we started our careers, we used to have, even for an IPO subscription, we used to have like some 20-page form where we had to sign at least 5 times. And then the paperwork had to be collated and someone would do a data entry. So the whole process used to take 7 days. And today it takes like exactly T+2 days for IPO subscription and then listing. So I think just digitization of the whole experience, dematerialization has completely changed the game. And as you can see, in India this year, we've had the largest number of IPOs second year in a row. I think it's the speed also of ability and to tap the capital markets. And therefore, a lot of, when we started our career, a lot of companies in India wanted to list in the US. Today, all of them are flipping back into India and want to list in India. So that is a lot to be said about the ease of doing business here, thanks to the whole regulatory framework, as well as the settlement and the trust that is being enabled for people to tap the markets quickly.
And if you can also maybe go deeper into the cross-border aspect, like I think all of us have been great beneficiaries of how easily you can do trading domestically, but I think we all still face friction if you want to trade outside India. So if you can talk about that, and where is it evolving in your view, and what about investors outside India wanting to invest in India?
I think that has a little bit more to do about us being not fully convertible on the currency. So I think more than the infrastructure, it is more a regulatory thing where we are not yet convertible, and therefore we have to have the limits in LRS, what is allowed to be invested. But having said that, I think specifically due to that, it's a little difficult for us to move money as easily. And therefore buy assets, because we haven't opened our gates fully to allow very clean cross-border settlements of and remittances abroad for specifically capital market acquisitions.
And do you think GIFT City is a step in that direction, or what do you think is the contribution of GIFT City?
Yeah. So I think like all big countries, there is always, there's a gradual opening, and I think GIFT City is a great initiative where, people will learn how to, both corporates, regulators, infrastructure providers, as well as investors will, soon start getting a flavor of ease of how it is when the rupee gets fully convertible, of investing, in offshore. And today, because of information dissemination being so smooth, thanks to digital infrastructure, people are now benchmarking their returns and wanting to be as easily able to invest in, a Google or in the Magnificent Seven as they are in the BSE Sensex stocks. So I think with that, the GIFT City will enable a lot of international investment banks to give them this ability to trade on their platforms to be able to do it more seamlessly.
And do you also see investors outside India investing in Indian stocks almost as they were investing in the Magnificent Seven?
So it's not so much directly. It's more through the FIIs, because they all have sub-accounts at the FIIs, and that's how they trade through them in the emerging market basket. And then within emerging markets, they may want to be overweight on some country and underweight on the others, but not directly. Just as Indian retail is far more, like we say in India, every retail investor wants to be a fund manager. But I think that phenomenon is not so rampant internationally. They still come through the institutional investors.
No, I think thank you for that. And I think I'm sure everyone will agree that they think they're the best investors in the market. But I think this discussion, I think, will not fully be able to do justice unless we talk about the unsaid elephant in the room, which we were again and again saying, but I think we are not addressing it directly, is to trust. And trust is always about some sort of identity. And I think one thing that has been talked about a lot is some sort of global identity. That are people just citizens of a country, and do they have just a local sovereign identity, or is there some form of global identity? And I think there have been a lot of attempts in terms of at least blockchain and things like that. But unless there is some form of global trust, there will always be these frictions and gates that we'll have to pass through. So maybe first, going to, and this is a question on which every one of us can have a take, but let's say first going to Akhil, do you see a future for global identity, and especially being a global bank, what would have a global identity look like, and how easy it would have made things?
Yeah, I think it's as you said, it's a big elephant in the room, because the challenge is around standardization, right? What standards do you follow? What regulators? I think there are so many questions that all of us will need to answer, along with the support from the regulators. I think where we're headed now is there are players, the platforms providers, who have actually managed to provide a standard where you can avail this platform to onboard clients in Singapore, in India, in the UK, in the US, in Brazil, for example. What does it do? It actually gives you some level of standardization, so that you actually are able to leverage one platform, and you're a global player, you want to be able to run your business in 5, 10, 15 different markets, you're able to then progress quickly, comply with the all local regulatory requirements, and progress with that. The challenge is, if you were to look at one standard global approach, I think we're still far away from it. I wish we can solve it sooner, but probably a few years away from that.
So maybe we'll come back as people come up with solutions. Maybe we'll take a banker's take on whether they work or not. So, but maybe going to Joachim, especially we are looking for more spicy takes from you. So if you can conjure up a vision of what a global identity will look like, and does it really solve a lot of problems?
I'm one of those. I hope we don't get a global identity. I don't think it's needed. I think that creates a little bit Big Brother that we don't want. I think it's important to have identity within a payment system, but that doesn't require, we're not going to have one payment system for the whole world. It's enough to have an identity system within each payment system. So when you pay, you need to be able to identify yourself within that payment system. But there are many. Just go out here and see how many payment systems are around here. It's no need for a global identity for that, not even on a national level. You talked about bank ID that we have here in Sweden. That's something we use, but the problem is of one point of failure. If bank ID goes down, which it does in Sweden, we are so vulnerable. So I believe more in developing trust from within each application natively. And then you should be able to trust within that payment application, and then you can transact over to other payment applications. But there's no need, in my opinion, for a global national identity or national identity, and not even necessarily for payments nationally. You can do it natively within each payment application. That's my opinion.
I think interesting. I mean, India definitely has gone in a different direction. But I think what you say makes a lot of sense, and I think it's a great segue to talk about, Fredrik, to talk about, let's say, what Truecaller has done. I think we come back again to the great problem solving Truecaller did, where I think a lot of these apps can use Truecaller. So do you then think that maybe, as Joachim is also saying, that identity is not some form of an external, big, large identity, but this is some form of networks which runs across apps? And if you can talk more about how it's possible, and is it already happening?
I think Joachim has a lot of points here. I'm not sure a global identity is the answer to everything. I'd rather see local identities. I think it's quite good, actually. I think it might be difficult to have it, app by app, for instance, but it's an interesting thought. So I guess what probably needs to happen here is that there needs to be different layers to invoke that type of trust that we're talking about. And how do you address that in different markets? If you look at Truecaller, you have a couple of different layers. So I was referring to the amount of signals that we can see on a daily basis. Those signals form a soft identity, but that soft identity isn't really worth anything unless it's verified or confirmed by someone. In our case, it's mostly the users. What we are seeing happening and what we started doing is to allow people to use yet another layer of verification. So for instance, in India, if you are on Truecaller Premium, so this is only for premium users, paying users right now, you can use your Aadhaar to really verify your identity. And then we started doing this with the companies as well. So companies come to us and they verify themselves and their numbers, and they tell the customers why they're calling. And since June this year, we're also offering signed calls. So for the companies and the customers we have that have integrated to Truecaller for Business, they can integrate with an API, and in real time, they can send a signal that I'm calling Fredrik right now from this number. And of course, we have that information. We can show that to the user, so they actually know that is happening. And what I spoke about earlier was, what if there is local verification and authentication methods that can also be added on top of this? I don't think we'll see a global standard here. I think it will be far too difficult to standardize this, and who should be governing that, Interesting discussion, probably. So it probably has to grow within each country, is my guess, and it will be like an onion. The more layers of trust you add here, the better it's going to get. And probably, to wrap it up, it's going to be a lot of programmatic signals. If you look at, for instance, 3D Secure version 2, you have a lot of signals versus version 1. So you try to automate this, and you try to create these different trust levels using the data that is at hand. And that's probably where we see the global aspect coming in. You can collect all these data points, but probably locally you build the trust.
I think very well said, and I think very European of both of you to take a call where you want local identities. But maybe Sonia, then we have seen the success of Aadhaar, right? And while there have been concerns, but I think it is fair to say that the benefits outweigh the concerns. So, I mean, again, putting that bold question out, like, why can't there be a global Aadhaar?
Yeah, I can only, I agree. I'm in the camp that there should be. Because the ease of doing business across asset classes, across so many things, the eKYC, but again, has been phenomenal. Right, the ease of doing, and that really helps us get the next billion layer in. Whether it's banking, it's settlements, it is securities, it is entry into the airports. No paperwork, nothing. But I do agree with Joachim on if it centers too much around one, we need to have some backup, because if that system is down, God forbid, then you are going to be jammed out of a lot of things you want to do. But I'm very much in the camp of having this, and you never know, it could just be your mobile number.
Yeah, one large telecom player, maybe Jio can become world's largest telecom player one day. But I think we're almost to end of the session, and I think rather than going into a deep question, maybe we can have one quick 30-second view from you guys on a future 5-year vision. That what is the boldest thing that you think will happen in 5 years for global financial system for each of you?
Do you want me to start? Sure, happy to. I think I said it at the beginning, right? I think financial inclusion is going to be super powerful and key. The embedded payments and use of blockchain technology will be the game changer here.
Awesome. I think Fredrik.
I think the most profound impact will come from people that are not digital today, that will come online actually and start making demands and be part of this system. There are billions of people that are not part of what we're talking about today. So that's where we'll see the biggest change.
I would believe that we will see much more resilient payments that works just as you wouldn't even notice if you're paying offline or online. And we will see much more interoperable payments between different sort of payment schemes. That will be there in 5 years from now.
Sonia, please.
I think the biggest thing that I think we would like to see out there is, interoperability across countries and ease of trading and settlements and one global digital identity.
No, I think thank you so much. Maybe I can also have my take on this topic, like one viewpoint from me also. So at least mine is to see a local AI advisor on every phone, so that we have a free teacher, we have a free doctor, we have a free lawyer, and we have a free...
like the word you're using, free.
I mean, it can be, also like Truecaller, there can be a free and a paid version. But I mean, at least something which is very useful as free. So that is my take, and which is, of course, will be global and accessible to all. So thank you so much for being part of the panel, and thank you everyone in the audience for being such a...
Thank you.
May we request all our panelists to join us in the center of the stage and allow us to grace them with a photograph. Ladies and gentlemen, let's express our heartfelt gratitude with a warm round of applause for all our panelists here on stage. Can I request our audience members to give them a big round of applause?